Kia ora my brothers and sisters, I am Celestial Serpent, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the etymology of health and the metaphysics of well-being. Now I've chosen to use this as a title because etymology obviously is breaking down words and talking about the origins of words which make up our understanding of things. So when we really get to the source of a word, then we can start to really understand what they mean. So, for example, heal, we're talking about health, so to heal actually comes from the word whole. So when you are healthy and healed, then you are whole. And that kind of gives us a basic understanding of what the purpose of health is to feel whole or full in yourself. And when you don't feel full in yourself, then you are diseased. You will not feel an ease or a flowing of happiness. So that's one thing to touch base on. And the other thing is well-being. So being is obviously the heart of metaphysics. Metaphysics is the science of being and all that encompasses. And the word well actually comes from the word will. So it's about your will to be in a certain state. So then to be unwell is to be unwilling. So you can only consciously be unwell. It's actually a perception or a decision to some degree. And in fact, as a prefix denotes the reversal or cancellation of an action or state. So when we're talking about unhappy, unwell, we're talking about a fractalized opinion or experience of something. So it's not whole in itself. And another interesting one of in relating to it's also denoting the deprivation, separation or deduction to a lesser state. So those words give a really good indication of actually what to be unhealthy is. To be unwilling to be whole or to be healthy is a separation or deprivation, or another word that I actually associate with it is denial. Because denial is a big factor in health. When you shut something off and try not to look at it, then you're gonna shut yourself up from a part of yourself and in turn part of your very nature. Alright, so we've kind of touched base on that a little bit, and now I'd like to go into some more words etymologically that are associated with dishealth or dis-ease, yada yada. And one of them is sick. So to be sick actually comes from the word seek. So then you break down the sentence, I'm sick and I need to heal. Well, you're saying I seek to be whole. And the very nature of the word seek is saying that I don't have, I'm looking for something externally generally, or I'm in the process of acquiring. So it's something that you don't already have. So you're not whole in the process of seeking, which is very interesting. Another word is ill. And ill, which we use a lot and associated with I'm feeling ill, actually comes from the definitions of malevolent or wicked, you know. So it's and ill even comes from the older word illa, which is ILLR, and that literally means evil or difficult. So now we're seeing this kind of paradigm of seeking to be whole or not to be evil. So when you're saying you're sick, you're evil, and this is really brings me to a connection with the oldest form of medicinal institution, which is essentially religion. You see where these concepts are coming? You're seeking to walk away from the evil, which in a lot of religious thought is our nature, or our fallen nature, perhaps I should rectify that. so you can see a lot of these religious concepts that have now turned into modern medicine that come from us seeking for something, that try, and you look at it really in the medical institution, they're just trying to give you this and that and this and that, and really it's about refining what you already are, because that's where the health comes from, and what you're outputting into the world is reflecting back to you. What you project reflects, and that will be the source of most of your pain and dis-ease, illness and sickness. You're seeking in the wrong direction. So we've led it back to religion. It's kind of swayed towards religion with this whole talk of evil. It's a very, very religious word. So now I want to jump into religion etymologically. Where does the word religion come from? It's a very hefty word, it's a big word. And again, this has another prefix of re, which is different to un, but the prefix of re is kind of like return, or perhaps something more like repeat. So it's denoting unoriginality, or returning to the original. So the word religion is made up of re and legion. And legion is obviously an old word very associated with Rome, as is a lot of religion. And legions, I would say, by definition, a body of people with common interest or common goal, common mission. They're a legion, together as a legion. One person cannot be a legion, but the cells in one's body can act as a legion. It just depends who their emperor is, what is the intention behind this legion. But legion actually comes from the Latin word legere, which means to choose or levy. So again, it's these people have commonly gathered under a choice to act or seek something. And that's what religion is. And the levy again goes back to the taxation. Levy is a tax essentially. And all religions and movements, all kind of societies, seem to get their power from everyone investing something into the general idea, or the general, everyone putting their energy in, which is most commonly seen in tax. And I'm not going to go talk about the systems that we have today, because that's a whole nother talk. But basically this has made up the premise of all religions, is people paying tax towards this entity, and how all empires, especially Romans and Greek as examples, how they've operated. And in olden days, before there was mint, money comes from the mint, before there was a currency, it would be raw goods, so people putting energy into something. So it doesn't always have to be money. That's just the modern equivalent really of what it's turned into. So anyway, that's religion. And there are many other things that you can look at using the word re as a prefix. A lot of words based on that, which are very interesting in the world of healing, because it's talking about returning to an original state. But you can also look at it at a legal state, like words like represent, which means to represent something. So present something that's not yours. And in a lot of situations legally, when you're representing something, or someone's representing, they're becoming a middleman. So you're not actually talking to the original parties, the people that are relevant to the legal claim, or whatever the situation. You're talking about someone taking the role as a representative. And we're all about cutting to the source. We're all about getting the power for ourselves and not being reliant on other people, like a lot of religious thought tanks. It's all about going to the source yourself, communing with God yourself, which is what it means to be whole. So some other words that we can look at are words like renew and refresh and rejuvenate. And rejuvenate is an interesting one because it comes rejuvenate comes from the Latin juvenis, and that's also where you get the words like juvenile. So it's talking about youth and to be young, juvenis. And when we're talking about our cells and our body and health, it's all about being young, or being in our primal form, most connected to source in its original geometry and its original structure. So anyhow, another one that I would like to look at from the Re family is restore. Now store, if you look at the word store isolated, it's often seen as a shop or somewhere where items are stored for the use of sale or to be sold. And to sell something again links back to sales, which was a strange journey I went on in my research. But anyhow, restore, by definition, I've got definition right here, is to supply something kept for use when needed, which sounds a lot like our body. So the economics of the word store and the use of the word store in an external sense is the same as within our body. And there was another one which was a verb, and that's the supply of something useful, which had the example, which was interesting, of a mind well supplied with esoteric knowledge. So now we're seeing the dictionary refining these words, the etymological source, and exampling it with the mind and our esoteric understanding of ourselves, which truly is health. And to keep your body in a well-maintained state, is to restore it, restorate it, is talking about cells, and it's talking about our internal structure and how we're operating as organisms. And the word store comes from sturat, I think it's pronounced, in Latin, which means renew. So these stores need to be, we need to renew something. It needs to be stored. It will eventually run out, and it will need to be renewed or replaced. There's something has to be in that place in order for it to provide its functional role within the body, bring it back to health. So, taking a bit of a journey on this one, and I found a lot of the time when I was looking at words like store, for example, a lot of the definitions had the word cell in it, like I mentioned just before. So I was like, well, cell with an S is talking commerce, but all these things link back to biology or astrology. It's all interconnected in the sacred science, which is my experience. If something's true, it's true on many levels. It's multifaceted, and it's true because it relates to so many things, and that is what the truth is. You can relate to it. So, but it's truth. It's universal. So I looked at the word cell. And the definition of cell, which I've got here as well, is, and this is with a C, the smallest structured functional unit of an organism. So there's some interesting words in there. It's talking about the structure and its function, and the fact that it's a unit. So let's remember those ones. And another definition within the same dictionary is a unit. Again, we have another unit reference there. And a device for converting chemical or solar energy into electricity. So it's a cell's function, or its structural existence, is to produce energy, to create certain chemical reactions, to create energy. And if you look inside of our body, that is what a cell does. And if you look at, I mean, that definition obviously links to solar cells as well. So solar panels is made up of a whole bunch of cells, and batteries are made of cells. And the word cell comes from the Latin cella, which means a storeroom. So it comes back to restore. We need it's like a vessel. We need something to put in this vessel. And interestingly enough, the way that our cells even work seems to relate to everything. So you look at our cells, bust down to the cellular level inside of our body, where there is about 120 trillion cells within the body. Now, a cell makes up tissue. All things in our body are made up of tissue, which make up our organs. And organs is where the word organism, you know, an entity made up of organs or organizations, comes from. Organic, like they all etymologically root from a cell. Now, if you look inside of a cell, you'll find within each cell there's approximately 6 feet of DNA spiralization. So there's that much information in DNA, 6 foot, if we were to take it out of our body and put it in a straight line, which obviously would break its very function and it wouldn't operate as a cell on a battery, but theoretically. So if you did that with 120 trillion cells, you would have enough length to go to the moon and back to Earth multiple times. So there's a lot of information, there's a lot happening within our body. In fact, what we're seeing in our body and externally within governments and stuff is the same type of systems. And the health, I mean the health of the planet and the health of what's happening, it's due to bad structure, inefficient energy. It's not efficiency that we're seeing in government and legal systems in the mainstream world. And if it's the same within our body, then we'll experience disease. There won't be wholeness. You can't be whole while the cell next to you isn't happy. And the same goes with us. We won't experience prosperity in this external holographic experience of self when we're finding brothers and sisters next to us that are struggling and that they're not feeling whole themselves. So it turns into this we consciousness. Turns into you and I. And interestingly enough, we go back to the word unit, which came up a few times, and I wanted to touch base on that as well, because that seems to be the root of a lot as well. I mean, you look at the word uni, which means one, universe, to, you know, the one song, one sound vibration, and to work in unison is one sun. We're talking about solar systems here, which are biological as well as astrological. Same systems are mimicked. That's one thing that we need to really understand. When we're talking about truth, it's fractal. Microcosm, macrocosm, the same systems, inevitably, if we're talking truth. If we're talking real truth, it's gotta be. If it's altruistic in its nature, it means everywhere, happening on every level. So a unit is also a measurement. You know, we measure in units as well as being an entity, and a unit is part of unity. So universes are made up of lots of units working in unison. And when we're operating on the individual scale, which is the microcosm, then we're talking about uni, which is the I, uni. And if we're looking at un as well, we looked at the prefix of un. You put an I in front of that and you get one. Yet uni is I mean, the un cancels out it. So when you're talking uni, it's actually a we. It can't be an I. It cancels out the I. It's mathematics. So the uni, which is the one, is the all. It's the we. And although there's lots of units that make up this whole spectrum of universal consciousness, they're all interconnected and they have to operate in unison. There has to be that resonance there among the universe. So anyway, back to the cells. So the way each cell works, each unit works, it works just like a battery, and it relies on what we put into our body temple, on what we interact with, on the information. You know, it's very much like the Matrix, that we're all batteries. A lot of references, a lot of esoteric occult science put into that movie. I mean, I could probably sit here for 3 hours longer than the actual movie and talk about the occult meaning behind it. But the basic premise is that everything is information, everything is numbers, mathematics. We're all batteries. We all create energy, and if we're using energy without creating it, no sustainability. The universe can't operate, or our systems won't work. So individuals have to be the main source of energy of economies. Economies have to be built on the energy that individuals put into it. And that's what we're doing in our legal structures, in our communities that we're creating. So let's look at a cell for a little bit. So the mitochondria is like the buffer period between the membrane of a cell and the inner parts, the inner workings and the nucleus. So all cells, nucleated cells, operate in the same kind of way, because it's the same as the solar system works, the same as gravitation and all of these kind of concepts, whether fully understood or not, they operate in the same manner. So the mitochondria, they move energy through the membrane where it's absorbed into the inner world, and that's for the majority of energy. The biggest thing is moving energy, and energy can be found everywhere. Energy is present everywhere. But in terms of an organism, it's the transportation of energy, which is a big thing. So the mitochondria, it allows for external information to be transmuted and translated into the inner kind of into the inner cell, into the cell of this battery, where the adenosine triphosphate create chemical reactions and become adenosine biphosphate, you know, the two. And this ATP, AB, anyway, this chemical reaction is what's creating energy. So it's the gaining and releasing. What we're seeing in these cells is the same as we're seeing in unified quantum physics and things like this. It's the expansion and contraction. We need to account for both the expansion and contraction, because it's that's creating the energy, and every one of our cells is operating on the same principle, but it's taking information inwards. And it runs on oxygen. So they say that that a cell that's accessing oxygen will create a lot more energy than that of a cell that doesn't have access to it. Obviously, I mean, oxygen is our livelihood as beings, as well as carbon dioxide, which is our product, our emission, what we emit. So the statistics that I was looking at was saying that, and I was working with sugar. I mean, there's many forms of nutrition, but sugar was just scientifically what they were using, being the easiest experimentally to work with. So oxidated cells that had access to a sufficient amount of oxygen, were producing 36 parts of energy for each sugar molecule or something like that, and there was only 2 produced for those without oxygen. And that really gives us a clue into the very structure of our organism and our role within this world. And if you look at this as a basic model, that we need oxygen, that oxygen is what creates health within our cells, creates energy within our cells that then moves things around the body and provides essentially nutrients and life to our body, then you can start to understand how our diet has to reflect this, or how our lifestyle. We have to be in very high oxygen areas and eating high oxygen foods, like, I mean, water, H2O, hydrogen, oxygen. So we need lots of water. Water is very essential. And when food is going down our body, you know, it goes through so many tubes, the intestines, the bladder, the liver, it goes all around, and it needs, the more liquid beings we are. 70% is my philosophy on ideal ratio. I believe we're 70% water beings, and I mean the average heartbeat per minute, the BPM, is 70, or 60 to 80 average, but 70 is the average, and there's the 7 chakras, 7 colors. So to me, this and this, at least this body, this paradigm, this dimension, 7 seems to be a common denominator, and 7 heaven. Anyhow, but we also need to be in environments that are high oxygen. So the trees create oxygen. See, they're the opposite to us through their photosynthesis. So through their process of life, there as organisms, they absorb carbon dioxide and emit oxygen, whereas the opposite. So this is a big clue to health, and it's very key in understanding how to emit the optimum amount of energy. And there's many other aspects of health metaphysically, because then we're talking about these cells and their emotions, their being, and when emotions get trapped and ideas get consolidated and solidified within our bodies, and emotions are getting attached and they need to be released, the energy needs to move. So stagnant cells create disease, and acidic environment creates disease. So there are many ways of experienced wholeness, but they're all in relation to the symbiotic flow within the body, and that's also on a metaphysical scale. So really there's a lot to think about, but the role of a metaphysician within this whole world, I mean, besides a dietitian, like a metaphysician's primal role would be helping the people to unlock some of the stagnancy. You know, it was to break down some of the dams and the barriers that are preventing flow throughout the body. And I know when I operate in the world of healing and metaphysics, it's all about helping other people to create revelations in themselves, to reveal things in themselves. It's not about healing them, just, you know, you have to empower them. That's the only way to experience true wholeness, is to empower. So so keeping that in mind, it's important to work on this, to open the subconscious mind to the conscious and expand in that state. And all health is derivative and measured in happiness. So you can always bring it back to your experience and how much and how happy you are. And when we start operating more on the we consciousness, like the organisms in our body working efficiently, then we will start to experience better health and more happiness. You know, happiness is the measure. So what I would say to the brothers and sisters out there is to start trying to create happiness for other people, and you will become healthier, because of the geometry that connects us all, that makes us all one universe. It's about creating love for everyone, creating a positive experience for everyone. And I think I'll leave that as my final message, and I will say much love to all you beautiful people, and all the best in your journey in becoming whole. In fact, scratch that, you already are whole. You're already perfect, you're already beautiful.